Hello, welcome to my channel Indumati. I hear, curate, underrated, and must known stories from Indian mythology that even have a mirror like significance in everyday's life. So today's story is a very interesting and very close one to my heart. So let's dive into the video. A woman walks into a king's court. She carries a baby. She is pregnant. She is alone. She has nobody accompanying her. She says to the king, she is his wife. She is carrying his child. She is actually saying truth. He says, I don't know who you are. And sadly, he is also saying the truth. Both of them are saying truth. But the court, the room, believes only one. And the story is about the believing person. And the story is about who will get believed and what are the circumstances that made that person to get believed. In every era, in every court, in every courtroom, there is a system in which truth is believed. The system, in majority of cases, requires a proof, a witness, a physical solid evidence which proves the statements that the person is saying is true. And this story is about a person who is exactly saying 100% truth but is also exactly 100% unprovable. And the story is about Shakuntala, the daughter of Kanva Maharshi, the wife of Dushyanta Maharaj, and the queen of Hastinapur, who lived majority of her life in forest because the world did not believe her. The hermitage of Kanva, Shakuntala grew up in a forest, not as a punishment but as a gift. Her father Kanva was a sage of enormous learning. His hermitage was the only world she had ever known. She was also extraordinary to look at, not adorned, not performed, the kind of beauty that belongs to people who have never been told they need to look in any particular way. Dushyanta was hunting. He entered the forest in ordinary way kings enter forests, assuming it belongs to them, assuming everything in it is for their use. And then he saw Shakuntala. He stopped. He sought her out. He was witty and warm, and everything a king is when he is trying to be appealing. And Shakuntala, who had grown up in forest and not a court, who had no training in management of powerful men's attention, responded honestly. She liked him. She told him that she liked him. Before he left, because kings always have kingdoms to return to, he married her. It was a Gandharva Vivah, a marriage by mutual consent, without ceremony, without hesitation, without witness, just two people in a forest agreeing. He gave her his ring, his signet ring, engraved with his name. He said, come to me in Hastinapur. I will receive you as my queen. Bring the ring and I will know you. Shakuntala is standing in the forest, ring on her finger, watching the king ride away through the trees. She was not worried. Why would she be? He had given her his ring. He had seemed entirely, genuinely to mean it. She did not know that three things were about to happen: that a sage would come to her hermitage, that she would be too lost in thought to greet him, and that his curse would travel faster than any messenger she could send. The hermitage, Durvasa. Shakuntala sitting, distracted, her mind already on the road to Hastinapur. Durvasa Maharshi arrived. The sage whose spiritual power was matched only by his temper, a Brahmin of such accumulated tapas that his words spoken in anger carried the force of law. He called out for welcome, the hospitality that a hermitage owns a visiting sage. Shakuntala not registering, eyes soft, mind completely somewhere else. Shakuntala did not hear him, not because she was rude, because she was a young woman in love, in the first dazzling days of it, and her mind had gone entirely to a king in a city far away. Durvasa, who has walked a long distance, who had asked for something that was his right to ask for, received silence. He cursed her immediately and completely. The one you are dreaming of will forget you completely, as if you were never existed in his mind. Her friends appealed him immediately. He had already passed through the anger, and he softened slightly. The way people soften when they cannot take it back but can little qualify it. He said, if the one who forgets her sees something he gave to her, something personal, something that carries the proof of their connection, the memory will return. The ring. She had the ring. She would go to Hastinapur. She would show him the ring. The memory would return. She believed this. The ring was on her finger when she left the forest, on her finger when she reached the river, on her finger when she cupped her hands in water to drink. And then it slipped, silently, without any drama. The way small catastrophes arrive, not with thunder, but with a quiet sound of something dropping into current and being carried away. The ring was gone, and somewhere in Hastinapur, a king who had loved her completely forgot she had ever existed. The court. She walked into his court. I want you to think about how it would look like. She had traveled from the forest to a city, alone, pregnant, without her father, without witness to her marriage or her identity or anything she was about to claim. She had lost the ring. She had nothing except but the truth. And she walked in anyway. Because what else do? You go, you stand in front of the person who should know you, and you say, "You know me." You trust that the truth is enough. Dushyant on his throne, his face not unkind, genuinely completely blank. The face of the person looking at a stranger. No flicker of recognition, nothing. He looked at her and felt nothing. Not guilt, not unease, not the particular discomfort of someone trying to deny what they know. Nothing, because there was nothing to deny. The curse has not hidden the memory, it had removed it. She was not someone who has pretending not to know. She was someone he had never met. This is the cruelest version of the story. If he had been lying, there would be something to fight, some gap between what he knew and what he was saying, something she could reach into and pull the truth out of. But there was no gap, there was nothing. She was standing in front of a man whose mind had been emptied of her, and she did not know that. She just knew he was looking at her like a stranger, and she had to speak anyway. Shakuntala, standing straight, voice steady in the way voices are steady when steadiness is the only thing left. My name is Shakuntala. I am the daughter of the sage Kanva. You came to our hermitage 4 months ago. We spoke. We spent time together. You married me by Gandharva Vivah in the forest without ceremony. You gave me your ring as proof. I'm carrying your child. I'm here because you asked me to come. Dushyant, searching his own memory with the genuine effort of someone trying to be fair, finding nothing his face. Kind in the way that what makes it even more worse. Dushyant, carefully, not cruel, which is almost worse than cruel, said, I do not know you. I have no memory of what you are describing. I have never been to Kanva's hermitage. I never met you before this moment. And there is utter silence in that moment. Shakuntala, I had your ring. You gave it to me yourself, engraved with your name. I lost it in the river. I know how that sounds. But I am telling you what happened. Every word of it is true. Dushyant, a Gandharv marriage requires the consent of both parties. I would remember consenting if I said so. I do not remember. You have no witness. You have no ring. You have only what you are saying, and what you are saying I cannot verify. Here, the court watches. Every minister, every courtier, every person who has spent their career reading which way the wind is blowing watches. None of them speak. Not because they are evil, but because speaking would require them to contradict the king in public, based on the testimony of a woman who arrived without any proof, without status, without anyone to watch for her. And here is the moment I cannot stop returning to. Shakuntala. I'm not asking you to take my word because I'm asking nicely. I'm telling you that I was here, in your life, and something happened to your memory of me. I do not know what, but I know what is true. You loved me. That happened. It was real, and I was real. Dushyant, I believe that you believe that. The full weight of it lands. Not, I think you're lying, but I believe that you believe that. The most complete possible erasure. Not a denial of her honesty, a denial of her reality. What she does instead. Shakuntala, standing in the center of the court, not at the ministers, not at anyone who might save her, at herself. A person deciding who they are gonna be at this moment. She does not cry. She does not beg. She does not try one more argument, one more angle. She speaks once more and then she leaves. Shakuntala to Dushyant. I know what I know. I know what happened between us. I know that this child is yours and that child will grow up to be someone this world will never forget. I came here because you asked me to come. I believed that the truth spoken plainly to a just man would be enough. I was wrong about that. Not about the truth, but about the room. I do not curse you. You are not lying. I can see that. Something happened to your memory, and that is not your fault. But I will not stand here and let this court watch me beg for recognition from someone who cannot give it. This is not something I am willing to do. I hope you remember. Not for my sake. I am leaving and I will not come back. For yours, because you loved me. And that was real. And a man who has loved someone and forgotten it entirely has lost something he doesn't even know he's missing. She turns and she walks out. Dushyant, watching her go, his face not relief, something adjacent to unease that has no object he can name, the feeling without the memory. She walked out of the court of Hastinapur with more grace than anyone in the room has earned. She walked out of the room that was supposed to give her justice and gave her instead a perfect demonstration of why truth alone is never enough. She went back to the forest and she raised her son alone. He remembered. Eventually, a fisherman found a ring in the belly of a fish. Dushyanta's signet ring, swallowed by a current, recovered by chance. When the ring was placed in his hands, the curse broke. The memory returned. Everything came back at once. He went to find her. He found her in the forest raising their son, a boy who played with lion cubs, who was even a child, visibly extraordinary. He brought her to Hastinapur. She became his queen. Here is the question I keep returning to. Durvasa's curse was an accident. He cursed a girl who was distracted, not wicked, not wrong. He cursed her because he was tired and irritable and his power had no off switch. Dushyant did not lie. He genuinely did not remember. He was, by his standards, available to him fair. The ring was lost by water, not by malice, by the simple, indifferent movement of water. Nobody in the story is a villain, and Shakuntala lost everything anyway. This is the truth at the center of the story. The system that decides what is true in courts, in families, in every room where someone has to stand up and say, "This happened to me." That system is not designed to find the truth. It is designed to find the proof. And proof and truth are not the same thing. Shakuntala had the truth. She did not have the proof. And the room, the just, well intentioned, fair by its own standards room, chose proof. She walked out anyway, heads up, voice steady, without cursing the man who forgot her, or the court that would not believe her, or the sage whose moment of irritation started everything. This was the story of Shakuntala. The source is from Adi Parva of Mahabharata, especially from the Shambhava Parva of Mahabharata. Abhignana Shakuntalam of Kalidasa has introduced Shakuntala to most of us, but I choose to write the story from Mahabharata because the version is much a harder one. I always wanted to say the truth in the harder way because it is how the impact lasts longer. I want everybody to stop at this moment and think about every room, every court, and every era where the truth is only said to be true when there is a proof needed.